Hi, and welcome back to this Intuitive Intelligence series. I hope that you've had a good week and that you've been enjoying the videos so far. Today, I wanted to focus on some really quick, simple development exercises, something that would be fun to do, but that also helps you to develop and understand your own intuitive process more deeply. And to do this, I want to work with your imagination as a way of exercising your intuitive muscles. Now, lots of people over the years have asked me what the difference is between imagination and intuition. So let's take a look at what each of these aspects of yourself are so that you can understand the difference between them. So, imagination is really the ability to form experiences in your mind that are really recreations of past memories, or they could even be something completely new and invented. Intuition, however, is the ability to acquire knowledge without the need for conscious reasoning. So, with intuition, you simply know something, or feel something, or hear something, or see something. So, imagination is an active process, you're actively creating it, and intuition is a passive process. So, with intuition, your mind actively forms an image in your mind's eye. In other words, you take action to think about something and bring it up consciously in your mind. Whereas with your intuition, you are not actively igniting your intuition. It's not something you actively create. You feel into it, or it just rises as a response in your body to a question or inner inquiry of some sort, but you don't actively create it. So this is really important to understand, or to discern these two differences, because imagination is something that you actively, consciously create, and intuition is something that you allow to surface. You don't actually create it yourself. So, inner inquiry is where we go inwards and we ask questions, and with intuition it rises as a felt sense in our body and inner knowing, words, or a visualization. And it's the visualization piece that often confuses people about the difference between imagination and intuition. And this is because whether you are actively choosing to create the image, which is imagination, or whether you are allowing it to show up as intuition, it will look the same within your mind's eye. So these ways of visually, consciously receiving information actually looks the same, whether it's imagination or intuition. So the most important thing to remember between the two things is that you are either consciously, actively creating it, or unconsciously allowing it to surface. And that's the really important piece to understand how you can discern the difference between these two things. Now, visualization itself is, of course, a clairvoyant ability. It's the clear seeing part of our clair abilities. And if this is your dominant way of receiving information, this can also be a little confusing within your own intuitive development process. However, what you will realize is as you connect more deeply with your own intuitive process, you'll actually start to discern the difference more easily. So, therefore, as your imagination is such a kind of powerful way of visualizing, it's also a really good tool to work with in terms of creating a deeper connection to your own intuitive abilities. So it can also be used, if we use it in the right way, as a way of exercising your intuitive muscles. And that's exactly what we're going to do today with the exercises that I'm going to share with you in a moment. So the most important part of this process of these exercises is to give yourself permission to use your imagination. It's not uncommon to get a little hung up about whether you're receiving intuitive information, through your intuition, or whether you're making it up in your own mind, which is kind of how we work with our imagination. So this process is really to start this process and work with it in the most comfortable way. Give yourself permission to allow your imagination to be part of the process. And therefore, when you do that, you actually take the pressure off yourself to not be confused about it, because your imagination is part of the process itself, and it takes that concern away. Now, when you're using your intuition your imagination as an intuitive tool, you don't need to go into a deep meditation. It's not something like the last exercise we did, where that was a deeper sensing journey. This is more, in fact, it's probably better if you're actually fully present when you're working with your imagination. You have to think of this as something that you do quite naturally all day long, every day, and you're always using your imagination. So you don't need to be in a deep meditative state to work with this exercise. So it helps you to be fully present and aware of what you are seeing in your mind's eye, so that you can really acknowledge the information and the way that it's showing up for you. So whether you're dominant in clairvoyance or not really doesn't matter. This is a visualization process, but we're going to be bringing in your other senses anyway. So you're going to be working with all of your senses during this process, even though we're using your imagination as a starting point. And so in this way, you can actually exercise all of your intuitive muscles. Now, the 3 quick exercises that I'm going to share with you now are going to take you through a kind of different imaginative journey with each one. So we're kind of doing the same process with each of the exercises, but they're designed to sort of trigger different responses within you, that gives you the opportunity to explore or understand your own creative process more deeply. So each one is really designed to bring you into a situation where your mind's eye is bringing up something in your imagination, and then you are going to practice how you're receiving answers to your inner inquiry. So I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself as you're bringing up these images in your imagination. So the only thing you actually need for this process is to be present here and now with me, and also maybe to have paper and pen or a journal with you, so that you can write things down after we go through each exercise. And I really recommend writing this information down, because it helps you to retain it. So let's dive into the first situation, the first exercise. And you may find it easier to close your eyes for these practices, but if you prefer to keep your eyes open, then that's okay too. It really depends on where you're at on your own intuitive journey at this point. Obviously, we're always working towards working intuitively by being fully present with the eyes open, but very often in the beginning it helps you to close your eyes to work with these processes. And I think this is one of those actual exercises where it does help to close your eyes, and I would recommend that you do that in the very beginning. And if you want to try exercises similar to this later on, then try doing it with your eyes open as well. So starting with your eyes closed, I just want you to take a deep breath in. Plant your feet firmly on the ground just to make sure that you're fully present. And then bring into your imagination now a field full of flowers. And this could be a field that you have been in yourself, that you know, it's a memory. But it could also be one that you are simply creating for yourself now. So just bring that into your mind's eye. And as you consciously bring that into your mind, notice what colour the flowers are in the field. And as you notice that, pay attention to how you sense this information most significantly. So how is that information coming through? Now, because you're bringing it up in your imagination, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will know the colour of the flowers visually. You may feel it. You may simply know what colour they are. You might hear words around it. Something might whisper a colour in your mind. Or you may see it visually. So just pay attention to how that information rises for you. Now imagine a breeze is blowing through the field and the flowers are moving. How do you sense that movement? Is it visual? Is it through your feelings? Is it knowing, or is it hearing? Do you hear the breeze? Just really tune into how this information is surfacing for you. And then in your imagination, see yourself standing in the middle of the field. And I want you to look down at your feet. Are you barefoot or do you have shoes on? How do you know this? Is it through images? Can you see your feet? Is it through words? Is it through feelings? Can you feel the ground beneath you if you've got bare feet? Or do you just know, without even looking, you know what you've got on your feet? So just take a moment to open your eyes and write down what you sensed. And then we're going to dive straight into the next process. If you want to take a minute to pause and move on to this in a moment, then please do that. The next process is just bringing into your imagination now a time when you've been out to dinner with some friends. And again, this could be an actual memory of a time when you've been out with your friends. Or you may wish to create maybe a dinner with some people that you're really missing at the moment. I know we're all in lockdown and so we are missing people. So maybe create in your mind a dinner with all the people you'd love to be sitting with at the moment. And as you consciously bring that experience into your mind, notice where you are all eating dinner. Where are you? Is it somewhere that you know? Or is it somewhere that you've never physically been before? Just pay attention to your surroundings. And how are you receiving that information? Is it through your feelings? Is it an inner knowing? Did you just instantly know where you were? Did you hear something? Or did you see it visually? And then just paying attention to what is surfacing in your imagination. What is the loudest noise that is surrounding you? How is that information surfacing? Remember, it might not be through your hearing, you might feel that in some way or see it. And then as you look at what everyone is eating, what can you smell? So you can smell without physically sensing a smell. Just pay attention to that. How is that information surfacing for you? And then notice what you're eating. What does it taste like? Does it taste good or bad? Is it something you're not really sure of? Is it something you haven't eaten before? Again, taste can be experienced through seeing, hearing, knowing, or feeling. So really pay attention to all of the different ways. This exercise is really about how that information is surfacing within you. And just looking at the table in front of you in your imagination, what are you drinking? Do you have more than one drink in front of you? Pay attention to how you perceive that information. And then take a moment to open your eyes. And once again, just write down how you received all of those different things. We were looking or walking through some different senses there. And it's really interesting when you start to go into taste or smell to see how that surfaces. You know, I feel smells really strongly as a clairsentient person. Before I actually smell it, I can smell it afterwards. And then again, if you want to just pause here as you write everything down, do that. But I'm going to dive into the final exercise. So again, just closing your eyes and consciously bringing into your imagination the experience of sitting on a train. Now, this could be a train that you've travelled on before, or it could be a train from, say, olden days, or maybe a train from the future. And as you consciously bring this into your mind, notice, are you facing the direction in which the train is travelling? Or are you facing the opposite direction? How are you sensing that? Do you know that? Do you see it? Do you feel it? Or are there words wrapped around it? And then, as you hold that image in your mind, what does the train sound like in your imagination? And again, you can feel this, see it, hear it, or simply know it. Is the train moving fast or slow? What gives you a sense of this? Feelings, knowing, words, or images? How are you being shown that? And the train goes into a tunnel. And as it goes into the tunnel, what do you sense most strongly as it does this? Is it feelings, sounds, knowing, or is it imagery? What do you see? And there are other passengers around you on the train. How do you sense them? And can you notice what they're doing? Pay attention to all the different ways in which you are shown that information. And then once again, when you're ready, open your eyes and write down everything that you experienced, focusing on the how you experienced, how you received that information, because that's really the most important part of this process. And you may once again just want to pause the video here while you do that. But hopefully you've enjoyed those 3 quick exercises. They don't really take very long to do, and using your imagination, I mean, it's such a free resource and it's so connected to your intuition that it's a really powerful way to keep practicing how you receive information. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and you can actually use that exercise or that practice with anything that you want to bring into your imagination. So you've really got a limitless resource available to you with that exercise. But the most important thing, I think, is really to give yourself permission to use your imagination. Don't get hung up whether it's imagination or intuition. It's a sensing exercise, how you are receiving information when you're asking questions. And then write down what you receive, because that's always a good frame of reference to go back to afterwards. It's a great way to keep your intuitive juices flowing and keep opening up and exercising your intuitive muscles. So thank you so much for joining me again. I hope you've enjoyed those practices, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.